Vamos a hablar de lo que realmente es el progreso, el concepto de progreso, pero vamos a hacerlo en inglés. Recuerda que este es un canal para aprender inglés, especialmente a través de Minecraft, pero también aprovechamos para dar mensajes de crecimiento personal, de motivación en inglés para que mejores tu habilidad de escucha. Así que si te agrada y si te gusta esta idea, déjame tu pulgar arriba, suscríbete al canal ahora mismo y toca la campanita para que no te pierdas todos los videos y todos estos ejercicios de listening con un mensaje de motivación y de crecimiento personal que te servirá para la vida. Qué mejor manera de aprender inglés, ¿no? Pues bien, vamos a hablar entonces de en qué consiste realmente el progreso. Activa los subtítulos, pon cuidado a la escucha y vamos con este mensaje a ver qué te parece. What is progress actually? What is the real concept of progress? Well, imagine that you are in a room and imagine that the room is really cold. It is actually as cold that you can see your breath. When you breathe, you can see a kind of vapor or a kind of a smoke from your mouth, right? Because it is really cold. It is like when you are or you go out in the morning and it is very cold outside and you can see your breath, right? Okay, imagine that you are in the room and imagine that you have a cube of ice. You have a cube of ice. As the room is cold, nothing happens to the cube of ice. Imagine that you are under 4 degrees Celsius. Nothing happens. But gradually, the temperature starts to go up. Gradually, the temperature starts rising, or it starts getting warmer. 3 degrees Celsius, 2 degrees Celsius, and at some point, the cube of ice starts to get melt. Right? Why? Of course, because the temperature is changing, because it is getting warmer, and the cube of ice starts doing the normal process of melting. What is the message here in this example or in this story or in this thing that I'm telling you right now? The point here is that nothing which is valuable happens at once or happens in just a moment, just in a flash. No, nothing happens like that, right? What I mean is this: 1 degree Celsius makes the difference. In the example of the cube of ice, only 1 degree Celsius makes the difference. But at the beginning, we don't see that. At the beginning, we don't perceive that. Because it is only 1 degree Celsius, so nothing happens. But after 2, after 3, after 4, something starts happening, right? And this is the point where real change starts to happen. This is the point where real change starts to come up, right? The big achievements in history, let's talk about people who are famous, let's talk about people who got millionaire, let's talk about science, or let's talk about anything which is well known around the world. Anything happened at once. Nothing happened in the first chance. Nothing. There was always something before that. There was always a process before that. Many people try, many people fail, and they try again until they achieve the goal. And this is always like that. It doesn't matter the project in which you are working on, but it always happens like that. You have to try again and try again and again, and you have to fail and you learn and you try again, and finally you achieve the goal. It is exactly the same example as the cube of ice. At first, you don't feel the change in the temperature. Nothing happens to the cube of ice. But suddenly, step by step, the temperature starts changing and the cube of ice starts suffering changes. Right? And this is in this case, I want to say this is the thing that always happens. This is the pattern. That was the word I was trying to find in my mind. That is the pattern that everything follows. That every single thing follows when we are talking about success. Actually, remember that you can find in the comments or in the description of this video, you can find the links of the material that I'm talking about. If you want to read, I really recommend it to you. In the comments, in the first comment or in the description, you can find that, okay? In that material, the writer mentions another example. Okay, this example is quite sad, but it works. He talks about cancer. It happens exactly the same. You don't detect the illness, or you don't detect the disease until it has achieved 80%, right? At that point, you start feeling the symptoms and you go to the doctor, and when you go to the doctor, they detect the problem, they detect the disease, and sometimes it is very late. But it is because before you detect the illness or the disease, there was a process. There was something happening that was impossible to perceive before. The same example of as the cube of ice. Another example is the example of bamboo. Bamboo at first, or at the beginning, is a very, very small plant. Yeah? And it doesn't grow. Even along the time, it doesn't grow. It starts 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, nothing happens. But when you see under the soil, you can see a system of roots, a complex system of roots. Yeah? And when all of those roots are ready, bamboo starts growing up very, very fast. And in a couple of months, after 5 years, in only a couple of months, bamboo turns to 5 or 6 meters tall. But everybody sees the final product. Everybody sees, wow, that's a beautiful bamboo. That is very high, very big, very, But anybody sees the process behind that plant. The same happens with cancer. Everybody sees the illness, and sometimes people blame doctors. Hey, why didn't you detect this problem before? But nobody sees that it was a process which was taking a long time before or behind the scene, It usually happens. The same happens here in the example of the cube of ice. You know, everybody sees that the ice is melting until suddenly the cube of ice doesn't exist anymore, and everybody sees the final result, but nobody pay attention to what happens before, the process behind the final result. Sometimes when you see people who are really successful, sometimes you see the final result and many people start criticizing, that man has a lot of money, that girl is very successful, oh wow, that's incredible. But nobody sees the process. Nobody sees the nights that those people had to stay awake, working, studying, composing, doing whatever was necessary to achieve the goal and become successful. Nobody sees the times or how many times they failed in order to become successful. And that always happens. Always. It doesn't matter the project. That always happens. Si te ha gustado este video y si te ha llevado este mensaje, si lo entendiste, déjamelo en los comentarios, déjame tu pulgar arriba, comparte este video en tus redes sociales para que la gente se lleve este mensaje de crecimiento personal y además mejore su habilidad de escucha en inglés. Aprende inglés con Minecraft aquí en The Web Inglés en Casa y llévate mensajes de crecimiento personal mientras mejoras tu habilidad de escucha en inglés solamente aquí en The Web Inglés en Casa. Espero verte en el siguiente video y hasta la próxima. Bye bye.